Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to a brand new review. Not a movie review as such this time. This is actually a documentary review. We are going to be doing. Oh, hang on a minute. My stream is playing at me and it's completely throwing me off. Let me just close that down. Sorry. We are about to give our review on They Shall Not Grow Old, which is the latest documentary directed by Peter Jackson, based on World War One. And from trailers, if you haven't seen it, please go and check out the trailers for this thing. This premiered today, a matter of hours ago, actually, about 4 hours ago, just slightly over, at the BFI London Film Festival. Tate, you didn't actually go to the film festival, but you went to your local cinema that was doing a live screening with it, as well as a Q&A with Mark Commode. I was in London. Unfortunately, I couldn't make the screening. I went to a meet and greet with John Carpenter. And I wish that there's no other situation where these dates could have been on separate days. I would have loved to have seen this thing. I think it's getting a wider release for the 100th anniversary of World War One in November, and I really hope it does because I'm dying to see this thing. So Tate, this is pretty much just going to be your solo review on this thing.
Yeah. So to be honest, I'd heard about this film. I think it was 2 or 3 months ago. I think George may have mentioned it on our podcast chat, and it piqued my interest immediately. I'd never really been kind of World War. I'd done a lot of kind of research and watched a lot of videos on the Second World War, and especially we did it as a subject in school, but we never really touched the First World War. And I think for people who are growing up nowadays, the First World War is almost the forgotten one out of the two because of the scale of the Second World War. It took everything up. There was a bigger threat. Not saying the villains, but like the people who were involved. Everyone was almost more famous in the Second World War. Everything was raised. The stakes were raised. Everything.
There was more of a clear goal as to why
Yes.
World War II was a thing, whereas World War One now, with today's standpoint, is considered a senseless war, where it was these young men being shipped off to the meat grinder, essentially.
Something that basically, just to kind of explain what this documentary is, Peter Jackson was asked by, I believe it was the Imperial War Museum London, and I think there's another film company, I think it was Parity, which asked him to do it, who basically came to him and said, we want you to do like a 30-minute documentary as tribute to 100 years since the First World War. And he was basically said, okay, I want access to the archives. We'll see what we can do. He actually didn't intend to do anything really with the archive footage other than possibly restore it to black and white.
I think their original their rules of it were take this footage and do something new and interesting with it that had never been done before or hadn't been done much before with that material.
Yeah. So the sharpening of the black and white was his initial interest in turning it into a kind of documentary detailing the soldier's life and focusing on also different elements of the war. But he was given, in the end, 100 hours worth of footage from the archives. And interestingly enough, in the Q&A afterwards, he actually said that he had restored all 100 hours of the footage into that high quality black and white footage, which is an incredible feat in itself, because he was saying you have to get rid of the blotches on the film, you have to get rid of any stability issues. He brought on lip reading specialists to read the lips and actually have the dialogue recounted. So he brought in people to go and do that. So all of the dialogue heard may not be from the people who were actually there, but it sounds, when you're listening to it in the actual film, it sounds so accurate. It's unbelievable. It's possibly the scariest thing about it, as far as the film is concerned. I know this film, I'm not going to say the main gimmick, but the main focus of the film is the fact that it is restored into color footage, and that was the new, interesting, innovative thing that Peter Jackson did. For me, the thing that really stood out was the actual
the what? Sorry, what stood out?
Hearing the soldiers' voices and stuff like that. Some of the things where they weren't able to get the audio back from the original footage, listening to what they'd lip read and seen from like the footage and actually presenting that back out onto the screen, that for me stood out massively. Now, this might be a slight spoiler for some. I'm not
Do
sure.
I need to take out earphones
I
for
don't think
this?
you do, Chris, because
Okay,
it's
continue.
all
Yeah.
about the structuring of the way that Peter Jackson presented the story. The film starts completely in black and white, and I'll say that any time where the documentary is outside of the war, so for example, if they're looking at the people training at the start, if they're looking at people enlisting, the posters that were there, anything that is pre-front line is completely black and white,
Hmm.
and it draws you in. To start off with, they had around 30 to 40 um, different soldiers who fought in the war who had audio recordings done in, I'm not sure when, maybe the 50s, 60s, or 70s, after the war had taken place, who recount the entire story. So there is no other voices other than the voices of the soldiers themselves.
Hmm.
As soon as you get to the front line, there's a scene of literally someone crossing the bridge from outside the front line into the trenches, and that's where it turns into color.
Right.
And that is a phenomenally emotional moment. For me personally, as a person who has seen some war footage from the First World War in black and white before, it makes it feel a lot more real.
Hmm.
Seeing all the soldiers in color, seeing the faces light up. With a lot of black and white footage, it's all grained. It's difficult to sometimes see facial features and stuff like that. With the color footage, it is it's eye opening. It's phenomenal. And Peter Jackson did a really, really good job of restoring
Hmm.
this. He did make a joke about it literally being pressing a button and the computer automatically did the work. Um, but the idea to go and do that in the first place and the way that he presented this work of art, I wouldn't even call it cinema, it is art, is completely phenomenal.
Hmm. And it's also sort of the ramifications of what this documentary could have on other footage, like what else could be restored, what else could we see?
Indeed.
This I think this documentary, I know there's been like rumblings about it and everything like that, but I mean, I knew it was happening. I didn't know when it was happening. I only saw a trailer for this thing a matter of
Yeah.
weeks ago that this was happening. This is criminally underrated, and I don't think it's been distributed all that well. Granted, it's still a premiere and it'll get a wider release, but with the power of Peter Jackson behind it and his crew in New Zealand, because I think I saw an interview where he said he took the footage, went to their like supercomputers and everything they have in New Zealand that have incredible computer power and horsepower and rendering and everything like that. And he absolutely transformed this footage. And from the trailer alone, I was absolutely astounded by it. Just
It's
and you're
honestly,
right, like it does look
yeah,
so real. The faces stand out and they feel like real people. And I know that in a lot of interviews, Peter Jackson said that all the audio you hear is audios of some of the veterans from later in their life, obviously. And he wanted to make it as human as possible. He said that he didn't want to focus on the horrors of war as such. He wanted to focus on the people. And he said in a lot of interviews as well that a lot of the audio, like they're having a good time. A lot of them say that they feel that close bond. They feel like they're away from home. They feel like they're there for a purpose. Um, yeah.
I think there's one line which stood out for me, especially from the film. It was one of the veterans saying that they would do it all over again, and that honestly to me was completely shocking. Like we're looking in at this 100 years later and seeing the horrors that did take place, but these guys are smiling, they're happy, they're cheerful. Before the Great War or World War I, you you grew up in a village, you probably died in that village, you didn't really have much of a life, you didn't go out and do adventures. So for some people, even though there was their friends dying beside them, there was the horrible smell of death decay, the horrible conditions that they were in the first place. The fact that they were out, they were with other people, they were doing something which they would consider adventurous. I think someone said it was Boy Scouting with a little bit more danger.
Mhm.
um, it's crazy to kind of look back on it and think like that. But you actually watch the footage, and a lot of the time, there was a lot of smiles. I think Peter Jackson said at the end that this was really the first time that most of the people had ever seen a video filming character so they didn't really know how to react
Hmm.
around like someone filming them, and half the people would just kind of sit there like statues and kind of stare at it, going, "Oh, what's that? Am I meant to stay
I
still for
still
this
do
photo?"
that every time I go on camera. I still get
No,
like,
but Chris, here's the thing: they thought that it was someone taking a photo, so they thought, "Oh, it's
yeah.
a cool photo, so I'll just take a pose and I'll just stay there for like ages, and then the person would get up." And some people would be chatting to the camera like, "Oh, we're gonna be on the movies, hi mom," and stuff like that. So it was fantastic in that way, that we were able to kind of see not just like the actual war itself, but the effect that it had on the people there.
Hmm.
And I know that Peter Jackson, he said he wanted to focus on the soldiers. He didn't want to spread it across the entire war because he had footage from the people back home. So that's the infantry work and the women of the war. He also had footage from the Navy. He had footage from Gallipoli and various other different places, which he didn't actually explore in the film. He mainly kind of focused on just kind of that one area of, I believe it's the Ren, and going over the top towards the end. Um, but honestly, this film had so many different like surprises from a documentary, things that I never actually knew about the war, that I went into the film thinking, oh wow, so the war must have been like this, and it ended up being completely the opposite. For example, probably the biggest example of this was the German soldiers. If they were captured and they were medically trained, they would have their weapons taken off them, and then they would be given a stretcher, and they would help out the English troops stretchering either um, side of the wounded soldiers, and both sides of the war, both sets of first aids had mutual respect for each other, and kind of
Hmm.
had the system where they would go and collect. It doesn't matter what side they're on, they would collect the dead, they would collect the injured, and they would treat them. And
Tate,
what's
before you
awesome,
continue, sorry,
yeah.
we've just had someone in the comments say that your microphone's still very, very quiet. Is there any chance you can bring it up?
But yeah, honestly, Prince William arriving at the red carpet, and then after that, they immediately cut into the film. No trailers, nothing. They then had the Q&A afterwards, which was very well done by Mark Commode. He asked the right questions, I would say, about the war, about the filming, about getting the footage and stuff like that. And as far as an experience for the cinema, it was great. I think I was definitely the youngest person there. I actually went to go see it with my dad, and he was probably the second youngest person there. You saw a lot of people over the age of 50. Biggest age range is probably 60 to 70-year olds, who probably had parents in the war and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But I think the main message they took from the film was it was very human, and something that Peter Jackson mentioned at the end was nobody really knew why they were fighting, and either side didn't really want to kill each other. They just had a job to do. And there was a lot of times where soldiers would come up to other soldiers and they would see them injured and they wouldn't shoot them because they thought, okay, he might be able to survive. He
Hmm.
might be able to kind of get through this. So really for this, I'd say it was incredibly eye-winding. I'd highly suggest going to see it when it gets a full wide release. If it does get a full wide release, I think it is. Because honestly, if it does get a full wide release, it will probably be nominated for Oscars. Best documentary would be the number one. But yeah, that's really all I can say about the film.
I've got a little bit more to say on it, more questions to bring up, but some more people are just talking about the microphone.
Yeah, I
Someone's
noticed that.
put, is Tate trying to sound louder with that microphone? But apparently you're still quiet even with the microphone up like
It
that,
is
Tate. So
is being
see
quiet.
see if you can mess around with some of your settings. Maybe if I sit back a little bit, my microphone will be quieter and it will balance out a little bit,
Possibly.
perhaps. Um, so, I mean, I know that this documentary is dedicated to Peter Jackson's grandfather who served in World War One, and there was a bit in Mark Commode's review on it on his channel where he talks about that there's a piece of footage where there's this huge mine explosion, and his grandfather was standing about 100 feet away from that mine explosion. So Peter Jackson talked about the experience of viewing that footage back as an observer now, knowing that his grandfather was in that very moment, and that was an incredible, poignant moment for him. In terms of a technical standpoint with this, it is using techniques that we are saying are very innovative, and I think that's more in terms of applying it to the footage that we have with, you know, almost 100-year-old footage and making it look like it was shot last week on a high definition camera. But I know that obviously older footage like that was done on very older cameras with their frame rate. I think Peter Jackson's been quoted saying it almost looks like a Charlie Chaplin movie where it's very choppy.
Yeah.
People look like they're sped up, and they use the technique called motion interpolation, I think it's called, where they add artificial frames in to make it up to the natural smooth running frame rate that we have today for today's viewing audiences. And I mean, the concept of colorizing black and white footage isn't anything new either, because a lot of old Hollywood films have since been colorized. I think It's a Wonderful Life was colorized. I might be wrong about that. I think Casablanca, you can get versions as well that have been colorized. Yeah. Are we still having microphone problems? I think Tate's gone completely quiet at this point, so I will continue the review. Okay, what's going on? People in the comments, help me out here. I'm sorry that this is a bit of a piecemeal review.
Is my mic working now?
Ooh, that is very loud. That is very loud.
Working.
Jesus Christ, that's very loud.
Is it fine now? That's the question.
That's fine now. We'll see in the comments.
I probably killed everyone's ears just then.
We'll just wait until we get some people in the comments to see if that's changed. It's definitely changed on my end.
That's fine.
Are we all good? People in the comment section, is the audio good now?
I have no idea if it's changed or not. I think the problem was I've genuinely worked it out. This is awful. But apparently it was picking up, for some strange reason, every single time I replug back in my my webcam, it sets that as the default microphone. So for the last few reviews, I may have been using that instead of my Snowball microphone, which is
wow.
Dumb, very dumb of my computer.
Always check the settings, Tate. Always check the settings. But a lot of people are saying that's so much better now. So hopefully from now on, all future reviews will be back to normal. Sorry that the first half of this video is
apologies about this review, because honestly, this film is one of the best I've seen this year. It truly is possibly one of the most important films, I would say, of the last, possibly of all time, which is scary to say this as it's just been released, to say that a film is this important. He did mention the fact that he hopes that a lot of other museums and companies that have archive footage, not just of war footage, of the various different wars that are in black and white, but actual archive footage of anything. He wants them to take it to this company, get it done. He said it's quite cheap because he made this film on a budget for a 30-minute film. He wasn't allowed to have an extended budget, so he really did kind of go and make kind of lemonade with lemons. He was given nothing and he made this out of it, which is incredible in itself.
In all honesty, well, this is without a doubt a passion project for Peter Jackson, because even on the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings, he talks about how his passion has always been like World War I, World War II. He's watched pretty much all the documentaries out there are to have. And although they're completely different, and I don't want to besmirch the memory of World War I or anything like that, I know in those behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings, when he talked about constructing those huge battle scenes like Helm's Deep, for example, he talked about battle tactics and he brought in influences and stuff.
He didn't want to talk about tactics in this film, though, because from the footage, the first thing that he noticed was the soldiers' faces, and he wanted to make it about the soldiers. And that's literally all it's about. But
you do say, you did surprise me with this actually before we hit record, that it is still very graphic. I was wondering if they were going to completely shy away from the violent side of World War I. And to me, I thought that would be a bit of a disservice to those people that fought in that war.
To say this film is extremely graphic. This film has death in it shown. It also has people dying, people decaying. Has pictures of the front lines. It's a war zone.
Hmm.
I would have been slightly upset or disappointed if you didn't see those kind of sides of the war. And I'm glad they actually did show that out.
Yeah.
Because it does add another element to the film, because it's always lingering in the back of your mind. You see all these smiling faces, and then suddenly you see a face that may look similar down in the mud. It's crazy to say that in the least. And you could actually hear people in the audience like tearing up or getting emotional at some stages. And I'm sure that other people in the other cinemas who saw it would have been getting emotional as well. Even if you don't get to see this a cinematic release, I would suggest getting the DVD or Blu-ray or whatever copy you can get a hold of. And I really do hope this does open. This is like a gateway film and gets kind of more historical films restored in the same way. It could provide a massive renaissance for the documentary. Like, if people are taking these kind of old school footage, and like Peter Jackson said, it was a push of a button. I don't think it was much on their part to actually do it. The technology was already there. He just utilized it.
I think a lot of it as well with Peter Jackson is, and I don't really have much else to say on it, because like you've won me over already. The trailer won me over. You've won me over even more with your review. It's, by the sounds of it, it's everything I wanted it to be and more. Judging by how hard the studio worked him over for the Hobbit films, how he was doing like 21-hour days, like that trilogy completely aged him. I think he went to this, he was given this opportunity. I don't know when he started working on this thing. I imagine it was after that trilogy was said and done. But to me, it seemed like he needed this as a, you know, not as a relaxation, because it still obviously would have been a lot of work, but he's clearly passionate about this. This was a personal project to him as well. And it seemed like it was something relatively easier than directing a whole big epic production. And he's definitely taken a leave of absence from directing these big budget films since 2014, when that last Hobbit movie came out. So I'm wondering if that has a role to play in it. Maybe
he's got Mortal Engines coming up, hasn't
he? He hasn't directed that. He's produced that, and I think it's from the writers like Philippa Boyens, Fran Walsh, who worked with him on all of his other films. So he's very much a producer role in there, and I know he's also got Tintin, the sequel to that film, in the background as well. That's been in
he's a producer on that.
In terms of his direction, though, apart from this, and I mean, this is obviously a documentary, really. He hasn't really got anything else in the pipeline. So I think this was more of like a nice little project for him to work on, to get immersed in. You know,
well, that's very interesting. I did not know he directed The Lovely Bones.
Didn't you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, he directed that. That was after King Kong, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, it was. I had no idea who directed that. Wow. Okay.
It's a very different film. It's more like his old drama pieces. I know he did a movie with Kate Winslet in Heavenly Creatures, I think it was called. Yeah, that's meant to be very good. Maybe I should go back and watch some of these old Peter Jackson movies, like Meet the Feebles.
I feel like Peter Jackson has enough films to do like a retrospect, like we did for Spielberg.
Definitely, yeah. And this time I will watch all of the director's movies. That was quite a mammoth task for Spielberg. The guy's got like 70 movies.
That's why I opted out of it.
But I guess final thoughts on They Shall Not Grow Old.
Highly recommend. It's an emotional experience, but it's completely worth it. Go watch it.
I am praying this gets a wider release in November. I can imagine when this comes out on DVD, this is going to be shown in schools and colleges and universities, maybe.
I think college level, maybe, because it is a 15.
Yeah. I suppose it depends on the school, doesn't it? I mean, you can't really shy away from the horrors if it's still a very informative and eye-opening documentary in a way perhaps we haven't seen before in previous documentaries. Then I think that's definitely necessary to watch. But yeah, I mean, I haven't got anything else to say. It sounds like it's everything I want it to be. I can't wait to see this, whether that be on the big screen, whether that be on Blu-ray or whenever it comes out. But yeah, that'll do it for Tate's review on They Shall Not Grow Old. Be sure to comment, subscribe, let us know what you thought of this if you did get to see it at the premiere or a live stream of the premiere. It seems like most people in the comments, sadly, haven't got this. It seems like it's very much just a UK-based thing at the moment. But
Yeah.
fingers crossed it definitely does get that wider release. In terms of what's coming up on the channel, I have recorded a bunch of other trailer reaction videos, which I'll be releasing periodically every day throughout the rest of the week. I've got Aladdin, I've got Rocket Man, I've got Aquaman extended video, and I think I've got another one as well. There'll probably be some more stuff out. I am seeing, oh God, what's it called? Bad Times at the El Royale.
Bad Times at the El Royale.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High, or whatever it's called.
I'm probably going to see that as well, but at the same time, I also want to get in another viewing of A Star Is Born.
Yes, definitely go and see that movie if you haven't done so already.
Myself and George at the moment have seen First Man. Chris has yet to see First Man.
I am seeing First Man on Thursday. I will get to it. We will have, by the end of the week, we will have reviews for First Man, Bad Times at the El Royale. I actually
an encore.
And an encore. I went to a meet and greet with John Carpenter today, and I went to a 40th anniversary screening of the original Halloween movie last week. So I definitely want to get a review out, even if it's just a short one on John Carpenter's original Halloween before we get the new one later this week. October is just kicking my ass in terms of movie releases. I am seeing like 3 or 4 movies a week.
Why films didn't put out more in September, because October is it's killing me as well.
But that's why we have our cinema cards, where we can go and see unlimited movies for 1 fee a month, which is great.
1 fee here for me. It's just one big lump, and I don't have to worry about it.
We've just had a comment saying you should do more videos. We're working on it. It's very time consuming. We have lives outside of YouTube, unfortunately.
Yes,
but
sadly.
we have had a lot of video ideas. We just mentioned one now, maybe like a director's retrospective, which could be really cool.
We have another episode of Film Club coming up soon, as soon as Chris has watched
The Big Sick.
The Big Sick. I almost forgot what film I recommended.
Movies, Tate.
I have a new show that I'd like to start, but at the moment I need more people. So we're looking around for people that we know at the moment to get involved on that one, to make it interesting. And of course we'll have one Battle of the Brackets every single month, because that is everyone's favorite show.
I would very much like to do a Halloween Battle of the Brackets, because we haven't done one of those since we started the channel.
I would love to do a Halloween Battle of the Brackets.
I might make a push for that this month and get that out as our Halloween special. What else?
Would it be a best Halloween set film, or would it be a best horror film?
Horror film.
Because there are some horror films set not at Halloween.
Oh yeah, definitely. Any horror film related thing, whether it's horror moment, whether it's horror film, whatever, we'll think of something, and I'd like to get that out there. I was also maybe thinking of jumping on more Q&A live streams, perhaps. It's great if we get people in the comments like we have today with SeaWorld Man and Lucas jumping in. It's a bit dead in the water if no one joins it and we're kind of on our lonesome doing a Q&A that no one wants to see. Or we might do some update videos. I've had some ideas for the social media as well, because I'm very conscious at the moment that our social media output is pretty much, here's our new video, we're going live for our new video, and there's not much variety. So maybe some behind the scenes stuff. Would you guys want to see that, whether it's films we're currently watching, or just where you get to know more of us as a person rather than just reviewing movies solely? If you guys want to see that, maybe that's something we can get out there, more Instagram specific content or whatnot. But yeah, we're rambling. This has turned into an updates video, but I think we'll end the stream there, guys. So thank you for everyone that's jumped in the comments. Very, very glad we've got the audio sorted out now, so you can look forward to nice, crisp, clear audio quality throughout all of our future videos. Yeah, so that'll do it for our video, and until the next one, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.